Hi, my name is Dana Playton, and I am president of New York State PTA. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'd like to present this workshop, Taking Your Team from Good to Great, and I hope you find it very helpful. I'll be in the chat box, so if you have any questions as we go along, please feel free to just type it in there, and I will do my very best to help you. So our goals for today, we're going to explore why some teams thrive and some teams fail. We'll identify ways that you can build an effective team, and we're going to learn team building tips and exercises. Dysfunctional teams is a real problem. Perhaps you're all a part of a dysfunctional team. Maybe you just have one or two people on your team that are dysfunctional, or maybe the entire team isn't working together very well. Let's talk about the different personalities and the different styles that everyone has. And when you bring them together, how we can make them blend and how we can turn your team from not so good to pretty great. So those dysfunctional people that are on your team, perhaps they don't communicate well, maybe they don't communicate often enough. They will personalize things, they'll judge and be critical, and maybe they're assuming things that they shouldn't be assuming. These individuals, they're not playing by the same rules. Maybe they're making their own rules. Maybe they have assumptions of what the rules should be. They're lacking insight, and perhaps they're even lacking a little self-awareness. They're lacking a shared goal or focus. Some of these individuals may be a part of your board because they want the recognition. Maybe they want the title. And so they're not there for the same reasons that the rest of you are. But let's remember that everybody has a different style, and everybody can work together if you just learn how to do that. So what does a great team consist of? How do you make a great team? A welcoming and inclusive team will capitalize on different leadership styles. They're going to establish the norms and expectations. And this way people know what their responsibilities are and what it is they have to do. They're going to assess the function of their team, and they're going to evaluate the input. They'll embrace the same definition of success because you're all in it for the same reason. You're there for the children. You're not just there for your child, you're there for all the children in your school and all the families in your PTA. So your team members, though, they're made up of all different kinds of personalities. We have the thinkers. The thinkers are logical, careful, they're objective, they're cool thinking under pressure, they're consistent, organized, and they're weighing alternatives. An intuitor is innovative, creative, they're fast and deep thinkers. They thrive in chaos. They question things. They could be great visionaries with a broad perspective. A sensor is a doer. They're energetic, pragmatic, result seekers. They're multitaskers. They're action-oriented. They're driven and self-sufficient, and they're confident. A feeler is empathetic, people-oriented. They're good listeners. They're patient, dynamic, and fun-loving, but they're also peacemakers. So perhaps you all have one of those feelers in your group and on your board, and they're the bridge between the individuals who maybe are a little dysfunctional or not getting along. These same people, they rely on their gut and they go with it. Now, when you look at all of these different kinds of styles and all these different kinds of personalities, you may find that you kind of fall into more than one place. And that's obviously possible. You could be a mix of all of these and a blend of all of these. And remember that all of your board members are also possibly a mix or a part of all these different categories. But for the most part, you're going to also find that some of these things will just rise to the top. And so you're going to be more thinker than sensor, or more feeler than intuitor. But you may have a little bit of all of these things. Let's talk about each one. So the thinkers, those thinkers, they're always thinking. They're driving in their car and they're thinking. They're trying to fall asleep and they're thinking. They're sitting in the waiting room at a doctor's office and they're thinking. And they're thinking about all the ways to do something. They're thinking of all the angles. They're looking at each and every different piece and part of the puzzle, and they're trying to figure it out. So they're looking at all the different angles. They're effective communicators, and maybe they're sharing all those details with you. Very deliberative, okay? They're always thinking of every little thing. They're prudent, they're weighing alternatives. So as they're trying to fall asleep, they're thinking, okay, this is what will happen if it's A, B, and C, but what happens if it's D, E, and F too? So they're always thinking, they're always trying to figure things out. Those same individuals, though, they're going to stabilize all the others on your board because they're trying to stay very focused on what they're doing, and they're going to keep everybody else in focus. They can be objective and they can be rational. They're a little analytical, and like I said, they could be verbose, where they're just telling you all the details of everything that they're thinking about. But with all that said, they have all of this worked out in their minds, but you know what? They can be very indecisive because perhaps even though they've thought of all the details, they're not sure which way to go. So as they're thinking, they may not come up with a final solution. They may want to be overly cautious and they'll overanalyze. They may be looking at things without emotion. They're undynamic, and they could be controlled and controlling. So if they're always thinking of all the details and they're thinking of all the things that have to get done, they may want to control that. It makes them a little bit rigid. They could be very serious. So we need people to think of all those details, but we also need people who can work with them and who could take all those details and who can shape it into something that you need to do in your PTA. Now, maybe those are the intuitors. They're original thinkers, they're imaginative, so they're very creative. They're out there, they're coming up with the new ideas, they're thinking of the big picture. Those are the individuals on your board who are very charismatic. They're going to draw people in with their creativity and with their personality, okay? But they're also idealistic. So as they're thinking about things and they're coming up with these great ideas, they're not necessarily thinking, well, are these great ideas going to work? But they're going to come up with something. They're going to be thinking out of the box, and they're going to they're enthusiastic, and hopefully it's going to be infectious and draw people in. They are intellectually tenuous, and they're always out there. So there are other people on your board who may need to kind of rein them in a little bit because they may be a little bit unrealistic and way out there. But you need people like that. You need out-of-the-box thinkers. You need people who are going to spark something. Those thinkers then are going to take those ideas and they're going to work them out. The intuitors, they could be a little bit fantasy bound, maybe a little scattered. When I say that they're devious, they're not sneaky, but maybe they're looking how to take their ideas and run with them. So they're kind of thinking of ways to do it, but without necessarily doing things the way that they should be doing. A little out of touch. They may be impractical, ideological, and those visionaries, we need them. We need people to come up with great ideas. That's why all these different personalities on your board really need to blend together. Because if you take a visionary who is disorganized and undisciplined, they may have the great ideas, but you need the others to help you execute those great ideas. Our sensors, they're pragmatic, they're practical, they're assertive, but they want to make sure that everything stays right where it's supposed to be and moving in the right direction. They're results oriented, they can be a little competitive, they're more objective and confident, but they have to make sure that everything that everyone is doing is efficient. They're self-sufficient. And so, staying on track and getting things done, they want to see everything start from the beginning and take its normal travel to the end so that you get to the end with the results that you anticipated. But they're not thinking about what will happen when you get there and how you may have, some little bumps along the way. And so you need some of those other personalities to help these sensors with all the other details. These individuals may also be status seeking. So we talked a little bit about individuals who want to be a part of your board just because they want a title. We all know those people. We all know the people who think that if they're the president or the secretary or the treasurer, then they're going to get access to the school. They're going to get access to their children. They're going to get to be part of the classroom activities. They're going to get chosen to go on a field trip. So they're not necessarily in it for the same reasons as everyone else. You're supposed to be in, be a part of PTA for all the children and for everyone in the building. So you got to keep that in check as well. They may act first and think later, being a little bit selfish in what they want to do. They can be a little domineering and arrogant, because remember, if they're not there for the entire school, they're there just because they want to get their foot in the door because they're of their children. They could be a little arrogant and pushy and controlling. They're going to want to do it by themselves. And, these are the kinds of individuals that we have to make sure we don't let loose in the schools, because, there are others in the building who might be offended by the fact that they think that they can walk around the building and that they can do what they want to do. So as they're lacking trust in others, they need to learn to build their trust. And so you're going to need to show them exactly what is expected of them and show them that they can trust you. Okay, the feelers. We all know the feelers, and you know what? We're all a little bit of the feelers, aren't we? Those feelers, though, they're spontaneous. They're persuasive and they're empathetic to everyone. They're going to be the ones who are going to take, each of those individuals and kind of blend them together, because they're people persons. Is that doesn't sound right, but you know what I mean? I think I'm a people person. And so I want to always make sure that everyone's getting along. I want to make sure that we're working together, but yet there aren't any kind of feelings that are simmering that would bring some negativity to the group. So they're kind of trying to be introspective. They're trying to figure out what's going on between people. They're probing different people, and they're trying to draw them out. They're trying to bring them all together, be loyal to each and every one. They're not divisive. They're not splitting people. Instead, they're trying to bring them all together. But the feelers also, on the other hand, can be a little impulsive and manipulative, not because they're necessarily doing it on purpose, but because they're trying to get everyone together into one group. So those are the same individuals that are going to over-personalize everything. They're going to, take it to heart, a lot of things that are going on. They're sentimental. They may be the ones who are postponing things because they're not necessarily doing what they need to be doing, but then they're going to feel bad about it. And so as they're not necessarily doing what they should be doing, it could stir up conflict, even though their way of thinking is to bridge everyone together and to make people feel better. So they're not objective at all. They're subjective. They're really thinking about what's going on right in front of them. And because of that, it could make them a little soft and unprofessional. So again, we've got all these different kinds of styles, all these different personalities, but what do? We need to work together as a board. We need to bring everyone together. So how do we do that? Okay, all these styles impact everything that goes on. A board could come together and blend together, and maybe they know each other prior to the election, or maybe just the opposite. When I was president of my unit, when my children were in elementary school, I did not know a single person on my board. The nominating committee was finding that they had a hard time seeking nominees, and people were not accepting the offer to be a nominee on the slate. And so they went all over. They spoke with the principal, they spoke with other faculty members to look for parents who were involved in their children's classrooms. And so ultimately what happened when it came down to it, that night of the election was the first time that I met 5 of them. And so we all could not have been more different. There were individuals who really didn't even know much about PTA, but they're like, okay, why not? I'll run for, secretary, I'll be the treasurer. And so we really had to build our team from square one. We didn't know each other at all. It wasn't easy, but as we learned about each other and we learned to get along and we understood our roles and responsibilities, we became such a tight-knit group that for a group of individuals who did not know each other when we had our election in May until the following May, 1 year later, we were all the closest of friends and we got along beautifully. And we had so many great successes throughout the PTA year because we really were a wonderful blend with different ideas, and we really learned how to work together and share all those ideas and execute them so that we had the most terrific programs. So it's really important that everybody understands their roles and responsibilities. You also have to communicate your needs, communicate the needs of your school. What are your expectations? Who is on your team, not just your executive committee, but on your board? You have to make sure that every single person on your board and your executive committee understands what their role is, what are their responsibilities, what their expectations are. You can't expect that someone brand new will know what to do right away. So as you get to know them and see what style they bring to the table, you also have to make sure that they're clear on what they have to do, because most people will do much better if you let them know up front what your expectations are. And there are people who get very anxious, who want to be a part of things, but they just don't know what to do. So make sure, really the precedence here, make sure as you build your team and you make sure your team starts blending and fitting together really well, make sure you recognize their different styles and try to figure out how you're going to blend all those different styles to make a well-functioning team. So great team members, they're listening for meaning. They're going to cut people some slack. Okay, let's remember that family always has to come first. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to come up, you're going to put up with everybody's excuses. But remember, we don't know what's going on at home, and we don't understand all the time how things are going for different individuals. So cut them some slack, make sure that they understand that it's okay. If it becomes a problem, that's another story. But every now and again, there's something going on. So make sure everybody understands, no problem, family first. Don't personalize anything. There are many times it happens. Sometimes someone will say something and it's not necessarily about what you did, but it's about what's going on in the school. But we all personalize things, right? We're only human. We all have our emotions, but be very careful. And remember, whatever you do, or whatever you say should stay in the room so that when you leave that room, you could go back and everybody could be, comfortable with each other. That's not easy, but you got to do your very best to try that. And remember, it's always about the kids. So, in that same vein, don't judge others. Don't judge the way they're doing things. Don't judge, their thoughts and their ideas. We're all different. You've got to recognize that one style is not better than another. It's just different. You have to know your audience. You have to know who you're working with. And that takes time. But once you get to know them, you'll see exactly what it is that you need to do with each individual, how to work with them, how to talk to them, and how to get the most out of everybody on your board. All right, so with that in mind, let's look here at these different levels on this communication honesty scale. We've got different levels of how you can communicate with someone. And level one, again, these, if we were in person, we would be talking about this, we'd be writing these things down, we'd be modeling this for each other. So because this is recorded, it makes it a little harder. Usually I've got a lot of interaction with those people who are participating. So hopefully we're in the chat right now and we're doing that together as we're typing. But so these are 3 levels of communication. Level one, you're avoiding negatives. You're finding something positive no matter how hard. So an example of that is, we're so glad you chaired this committee. We'll find a more interesting role for you next year. So that's obviously someone who did their very best, but maybe it wasn't all that great, right? But you don't want to hurt their feelings, and you don't want them to walk away feeling bad and feeling like they've been a complete failure. And you want them to stay involved. But Again, maybe next year there'll be something better for them to do. So you're going to keep it positive no matter what. Okay, and then you've got that level 3 right in the middle. You're going to find the good as well as the bad. And you can say, I really admire how hard you worked on this. The next time, though, please give the board a little more notice so all can participate. So maybe this individual did everything on their own. They didn't ask for any input. And when it came right down to it, it just didn't work out. So you want to let them know without being too harsh. Listen, you worked so hard. I appreciate it. But next time, if you include the rest of us, we all could participate. Wow, this could have really knocked it out of the park. So that's kind of in the middle. Then you've got level 5, unvarnished, no holds barred. Oh man, what a train wreck you are. You totally missed the point. I can't believe it. You know what? Now we just need to start over. That's it. This is just a complete and utter disaster. Okay, so I would hope that none of us ever hit level 5. We can get frustrated. We can feel like we want to, hit our head against the wall. But at the same time, remember, we're dealing with volunteers. You're a volunteer too. And we all do things in our own way. So, maybe we have to look inward a little bit. Are we mentoring our other volunteers? Are we giving them the right direction? Are we kind of, keeping our eye on things as they go? So, my suggestion would be never to get to level 5, even though sometimes it's hard. Sometimes, it's really easy to be reactive and not be able to edit yourselves, but really do your best to bite your tongue, because we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings and we don't want to turn anybody away. All right, so now in the chat, and let's see how we do with this, because again, this is something that if we were together, we would just be sharing, face to face. So what I'd like you to do now in the chat is share something that someone can do to win with you. And if they do it, you're open to communication, you're ready to listen, you want to help them, you're going to view them in a positive light. So there's always something that someone can do, and that'll win you over. So go ahead, let's see what you come up with. I'd love to be able to talk about them with you, but since this is recorded, I won't be able to do that, but let's type that in there anyway. And while you do that, so something that someone could win with you, okay, but do they know that? Have you communicated with your board members or your PTA general members? And do they know what it is that would win with you? So, we can't read people's minds and they can't read yours. So think about that. If somebody, like for me, something that would win with me is someone who shows that they've listened to all that I've said, so that down the road, they've repeated something or they've done something that I've suggested. There's great feedback to something, then I know that, they win with me, because I know that they're on my team and they're all in. But if I don't share that I appreciate that feedback from them, they're never going to know that. And with that said, I give them the same feedback so that they can see that I appreciate them. Say thank you all the time. In fact, I probably say thank you so much, people are annoyed with that. They probably like, all right, we get it. You appreciate us, yay. Okay, so we're just going to be, chit-chatting now in the chat, something that they can do to win with you. But if you're not in the mood to participate in the chat, let's just move on then to the next one. So here again in the chat, I hope you do this. Share something that make it less likely that you will listen to someone or want to work with them, less likely that you'll cooperate. So I'll tell you, when I hear that there's some grumbling from some individuals, when I hear that there's complaining from some individuals, I don't want to work with them. We're all volunteers. We all do our very best. We all earn the same salary. Someone will win with me if they come to me and they talk to me about it. But if they're just going to be, kind of riling things up and stirring the pot, then yeah, that's not somebody that I want to work with. come to me. I appreciate communication. I appreciate someone being honest with me. I am completely honest with my board members. I'd like to be transparent. I wear a lot of hats in my district. I wear a lot of hats in my community. And if I wasn't open and honest with everyone, then I wouldn't have that same level of trust from all of these different associations and organizations. I can't certainly tell something to someone in one group and they say something to somebody else in another group and, have them be opposite. Or I can't give away some information in one group that I shouldn't be. So if someone breaks my trust or talks about things without coming to me first, that's someone that I really don't want to work with. And someone who I can see will not be cooperative, then I don't want to be cooperative with them. So again, I hope that you're sharing these things in the chat room and we can chat about them. Okay, so once you figured out all the different personalities that you have, on your board, it's really, really important to set some norms. And we talked about that before, that all PTAs should have norms. Your PTA should have procedures. They all have bylaws, obviously, and you should have procedures on how you do different things. But really important, in order to build your team, you should have a code of conduct. Now, we have one on the New York State PTA governance team. And at this time, we are actually working on a code of conduct that we are going to share with all the units across the state. And that will come out by September. And what our expectations are of our PTA members. We're hoping that you'll adopt that code of conduct and that you'll have the members of your team sign them. So this way they know what their expectations are. They know what the values of your PTA are. And it'll be the standard to which you can hold your team accountable and yourself as well. So it's really important. And this way, if something happens down the road, you can remind someone, we all signed a code of conduct. So their expectations, set those norms and keep everybody on track because your focus should all be the same. And that would be on the children in your school, in your unit, in your council, your region, and certainly for all the children in the state of New York. Put together some meeting ground rules, short, simple rules. You're going to post them on the walls or on your agenda. When I host a meeting, I have the same rules on every single agenda. It's just copied and pasted. And those rules were established at my very first meeting. So we all set those rules together. We all have agreed to be respectful, to not speak over anybody, to take our turn, to raise our hand and be called on, no judgment, no disrespect, be considerate. And, these are all the things that we would hope for, but by setting them in writing on your agenda, it's a constant reminder. These are our expectations for our meeting. Okay, let's have a really great positive meeting and we're going to get a lot more accomplished. Okay, so here are also some sample ground rules for your PTAs. You can use these, you can take notes if you want me to send you this list because you don't have enough time to jot it all down. I will do that. Just put your email address in the chat box and I will do that. Number one, be on time because our meetings will start on time. If you tell everybody it's a 7 o'clock start, but you're constantly starting late, 7:15, 7:20, 7:30, people aren't going to come on time. And then your meetings are going to start later and later and later. Everyone on your board has value. They are there for a reason. Give each of them 2 to 5 minutes to share an update of what they're doing. And if more time is needed, you can all agree to extend the time. But you should let everyone have that opportunity to share their update and what they're doing. Hold questions until each leader is done with their update. Don't interrupt. Just wait patiently and then raise your hand. Don't talk over them. That's really disrespectful. Let them finish and then you can ask questions. Remember just table those side conversations. Don't interrupt someone who's speaking, don't whisper. It's really a distraction and it's rude. So table those side conversations until the meeting is done. Be an active listener and participant. Put your cell phones away, your tablets away. If you're a board who brings their laptops to every meeting, and everybody is supposed to be looking at the same thing, don't tune into Facebook, don't check your email. Everybody should not be distracted by their technology. And be prepared to report out for your team. So if you're a chairperson for an event, you're not necessarily going to have your entire committee at a board meeting. So be prepared to report about the event and to give out all the details. And, again, it's a matter of taking a few minutes before the meeting to jot down some notes or prepare a written report, but make sure that you are ready to give a report. If you can't go, and it's an event that's coming up, it's very important information that has to be shared, then maybe you can share a backup representative, somebody else that's on the committee that can attend the meeting in your place. Let your team leader or expert respond to the inquiries before you do. Don't monopolize the discussion. So, perhaps you're on a committee that one of your co-board members is running. Let that individual answer all the questions. You may know the answers, but you're not the team leader. You're a member of the committee. It's not your place then to answer the questions unless that team leader turns to you and said, what do you think? Am I missing anything? Can you answer that question for me? Don't railroad the whole board meeting and make it all about you. Don't monopolize the conversation. Let everybody do their own, sharing. And a lot of give and take for the meeting. It's respectful and it will make people get along better if they all feel valued. Meet your deadlines, do the follow-up. If you have promised something, make sure that you deliver, because there's nothing that is more divisive than an individual on a board who isn't doing what's expected of them. And finally, communicate with your fellow team members, the leaders. If you can't make a meeting, let them know. If you can't follow through with something, let them know. If you need more help, let them know. If you're running an event and you need people to collect tickets, or if you need people to, help with supervision, communicate, let them know. Email is so easy these days, and it's so easy to send a text message. Set up a group text for your board. And, this way everybody gets the information at the same time and you can't forget anybody. We use a group text on New York State Board, and it can get a little bit much sometimes, but we're always sharing the information that we need to share, and we have great communication. All right. And really think about evaluating what your team is doing. Great teams function really well when they're constantly looking at what they're doing. Think about it. Are we getting along? Are we getting things done? What do we need to do so that we can make things better? What can we do to improve what we're doing now? All right, so I've got some suggestions for improvement. You can ask board members to write 3 things that they think the board does well. Give them all an index card. They may not want to share. That's quite possible that, they want to be anonymous. That's okay. So you could take those, plain index cards, fold them up, put them in, a hat, into a bowl, and you can pick them out one at a time. But a lot of times people will have suggestions as to how things could be better, and you should be open to that. And, it's not a reflection on the president, certainly. Instead, these are going to be suggestions on how to make things run smoothly, and hopefully it's all positive. You can also ask for a suggestion to improve the board meetings or the board function. So, and that's separate from what the board does well, right? The meetings are separate, and sometimes you're not getting enough people at your meetings, and maybe there's a reason why. So maybe there are other board members who can make a suggestion on how to improve that. And you know what? We can all do things better. There is no perfect PTA out there. There are phenomenal, great PTAs, but there's always something that you can do better. So ask maybe if they have any suggestions for one thing that you can do better as a board. And with that said too, all boards need training. It's an ongoing process. You constantly should be training. Listen, right now I feel like I'm speaking to the choir because all of you have tuned in on this Wednesday night for 3 hours and you're getting the training that you need. And I hope that you bring it back to your units and you share what you've learned. But sometimes there's, an area that you can have a little bit more training, a little bit more information. And you can go to your council presidents, you can go to your region boards, they will provide that for you. Every single region will do something called a school of instruction. And that's like a workshop in an area that you could use some help. So reach out to your regions and see if there's something that you need, see if there's something that I can provide for you to help your unit. And then you know what? There's always something that somebody wishes would just come to an end. There's always something, right? There's always an idea or a suggestion of something that's happening that really doesn't help what's going on. In the grand scheme of things, it could hurt your board. So ask your board members, what's one thing that we really should stop doing, that we shouldn't be continuing anymore, and how can that improve our PTA? I would suggest when you start planning for the school year, you want to set your goals. So, at this point of the year, with July coming to an end shortly, and August about to start, it's usually around the time that boards will start to meet to plan for September. So create a plan, take a calendar, take that September through June calendar, and it's a blank calendar right now, but fill in all the activities and all the events right now. And this way you have a big picture of what you want to do. Maybe you want to plan an event once a month. Maybe you want to do 4 events for the year, but plan ahead. Create that plan so that everybody knows and everybody expects what it is you're going to do. You're then going to fill the roles for your chair people, and they're going to know what their expectations are. If you want to have a mother-son square dance in November, find 2 chair people or 1 chair people who can put together a committee, and they're going to know in November, I have a mother-son square dance, and they could start to work on it early enough and even put together a list of procedures so that next year, if you plan to hold a mother-son square dance, then the new people who take on the event will know just what to do. So as you create a plan, ask those people who are involved with the different events to create a list of procedures. It really does make things easier for the people who follow down the road. As you're setting your plan, you should get input from your members and from the staff. Involve people. Maybe they see things that they love, and maybe they see things that they don't really love. Maybe there are things going on at other schools that they would love to incorporate at yours. We all know the parents chit chat at the soccer fields and the baseball fields, and when they're picking their children up from dance or any other activities, and they're finding out what's going on in other schools. So get input from your members and see if maybe something new can work. You have to have a budget, right? We all know that. And when you're creating your budget, make sure that your budget is supporting the goals that you set. And when you're budgeting, just a little plug for the New York State PTA Convention, it will be held in November. It is the weekend before Thanksgiving this year. It will be in Syracuse. So make sure that you add enough money to the budget to attend in person. But if you can't attend in person, we will be offering a virtual option as well. But again, you got to set aside money in your budget so that you can participate. And then as you're going through the year, you want to identify indicators of success. What worked? What didn't work? Take notes immediately after an event, because then you're going to know moving forward what was really successful and what really needs to be changed, or what, maybe things that you just don't want to try again. I always find that if you take notes immediately after the end of an event, when you go to do it again the following year, all those notes will be there for you, and you won't, you won't forget, and it'll come to you, too late. Like, oh yeah, we weren't going to do it that way. or we were going to embellish something else. So if you take notes right away, you'll identify those indicators of success. And then at the end of the school year, celebrate your success, celebrate your volunteers, take time to say thank you, show your appreciation. And, it can be an event, it could be a dinner, it could be a small token, it could be a thank you card. It doesn't have to cost you anything, but make sure that you're celebrating your successes, because your PTA is only going to be better when all your volunteers know how much you appreciate them. So my theme for my presidency is shining a light on every child. And I really feel very strongly that we need to make sure that everything we do focuses on every single child, regardless of where they live, regardless of their family situations, regardless of anything. We must shine a light on every child. It sounds a little corny, but I always say you need to be a beacon of hope for all these children. You need to inspire all the families, engage your families, include your families. You're going to be more and more successful as a PTA, and your PTA will thrive if you're involving all of your families and doing all you can for the children. Thank you so much for attending this workshop. I hope that you got a little bit out of it. I have time now. We could, talk a little bit in the chat box. My email address is president@newyorkstatepta.org. So it's president@nyspta.org. Email me anytime, any questions, any comments. I would be happy to have a conversation with you, to offer any kind of help that I can. And again, New York State PTA is here for you. We've got so many different kinds of webinars and web chats. And obviously you're here tonight to participate. But if you go on our website, you can see recordings of all the things that we've done in the past. And so I thank you. I thank you so much for caring enough and for being there for all the children in your schools and for being here tonight. So we'll take a few more minutes in the chat box. And again, thanks for being here. It's very much appreciated. And I hope I see you all in November in Syracuse. Thank you.